Welcome everyone to the show, Combustible Elements, real talk for real people. Here we try to put different ideas and perspectives together in a pot, heat it up, and get an explosion of knowledge and understanding. We understand that problems can only be fixed starting from the bottom to the top, building a great foundation for change and improvement. I'm Big Mel, and I'm joined by Ruben, aka the Monarch, and Aaron, the Hitman. Let's get started.
So thank you once again for joining us for Combustible Elements. We're here like we're always here to talk about what's going on in the world and things to improve your life. This time we're going to go into a topic where a lot of people are talking about, and it's a confusing topic for me. It may be more direct for some people, but it's confusing for me. And that is the Cain Velasquez situation in San Diego. If you're not aware of it, Cain Velasquez is a former two-time UFC heavyweight champion, and allegedly someone, a pedophile, did something to a member of his family. I was trying to think of the right way to present it. And Cain Velasquez chased that pedophile and tried to kill him on the highway. And a lot of people were saying, free Cain, free Cain, free Cain. You know, what would you do if that was your child? So we're going to talk about this situation. All right, either one of you two are familiar with the story?
Yeah, I saw it when it first broke, and then before the show, I was kind of trying to catch up on the topic because I don't really watch like a lot of news, so I was just watching a lot of commentary on it and trying to listen to a little bit of background of the story. So, like you said, it was like one of his family members, but then some people were saying it was his daughter. So I'm still unclear as to if it was a family member or if it was his actual daughter that was molested.
Everybody is unclear of who the actual person was, because in court documents they can't release victim information, especially about a child. But it's agreed upon that it was a close family member, but right. They didn't name a person. Now, people have their opinions, like people have come out and say they think it was his daughter, what would you do, and this and that. And I've heard the daughter thing too, but the news reports are saying a close family member. So let's just go with a close family member, somebody associated with his family, and then from there. So since you're familiar with it, I'm assuming Ruben is familiar with it too. My biggest thing, okay, I guess let's backstep. Do you think he should have made bail?
I think he should have made bail. They also gave their reasons as to why he didn't make bail, which were, I guess, legitimate reasons, but I personally think that he should have made bail.
Okay, so let me stress what the legitimate reasons were. The legitimate reasons were he chased the man for 11 miles. 11 miles in a city, shooting at the car while he had other passengers in the car other than the man. He's a danger because 11 miles, we've all driven 11 miles. That gives you enough time to think, right? So that's why they denied bail to him. If any other person in any other situation chase somebody for 11 miles, they wouldn't even think about granting a bail. So that was the reasons for that. But you feel as though he should have made bail. So I'm assuming you believe because it was a crime of passion. And we're going to talk about that too, because we need to redefine that in temporary insanity.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you said. Like he drove 11 miles. Like you have time to cool off in 11 miles, but at the same time, if you're in the moment and you're driving 11 miles, if you're chasing somebody, your whole thought process is to chase that person. Like a real quick story, like I worked in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania, and one of the people at my job got in an argument with his stepfather, and his stepfather drove from Atlantic City, New Jersey to Conshohocken, Pennsylvania. So in that time span, you have time to cool off because you got to go on a highway over to another highway all the way to get, you got to drive at least 4 hours to get to my job. In that time span, you have time to cool down. But like, when you're in the heat of the moment, it's kind of hard to start to think critically about what the consequences are in that matter. So, I mean, he spent time in jail for chasing the guy down and shooting at him. I think he had time enough to think about it. And I think his family will also have keep a close eye on him to make sure that he didn't indeed go after the person another time.
So do you think that we should, and Ruben, this is for you, do you think that we should redefine how we view temporary insanity or crimes of passion? Because it was always defined by you just acted out of emotion right then and there. But now, in this situation, that emotion carried for some time. And in the situation that you gave at that job, that emotion carried for like over an hour and a half. So should we redefine how we view crimes of passion and insanity, Ruben?
Before I say we should redefine it, I don't really know what the definition of it is right now. So I mean, it's easy. Like what Aaron said makes sense. Obviously, if you got 4 hours to think about something, then it's assumed that that's more than enough time for you to think logically. But then at the same time, let's say you're a fighter. How long? And you're the fighter of the night. You might have to go, 2-3 hours and 4 hours away, where all the fights leading up to your main event fight happen. And during that time, you got to keep intensity. You got to keep a certain level of like composure and everything else before you get in the ring. Even with all the nerves, even with all of the anxiety and everything else that you got going on. So I'm saying all this to say, when you got emotions going through your head, it's illogical for somebody to think that you're supposed to act logical. Once when something happens that takes you to that point, it might seem like somebody that's thinking clearly. You say, well, you know what, you had all this time, you should have. Yeah, you're saying that, you're speaking as A, outside of that situation, and B, after everything had already happened. But when you're in the thick of it and you're going through your emotions about something that's hurt you deeply, nothing logical happens. That's part of the insanity defense. It's like you're no longer thinking as everyone in society either expect you to think or do think. So I don't know.
So you think the time component doesn't really matter depending on how out of control you are?
Yeah,
but if the time,
it might be a whole day that you're in a trance about something and you're not thinking clearly. 4 hours should be enough time if you're thinking clearly. 4 hours should be enough time if you're not, if you're not going through the roller coaster that person, and that moment is going through. Because you yourself, you're looking at it from like your sane point of view and your sane thoughts. That's the whole part. That's the whole point of, insanity. It's like, you're not thinking that 4 hours to you might have only been a minute to that person because at that time frame, they were insane.
Okay,
they're not thinking time. They're not looking at seconds. They're not looking at minutes. They're just acting and reacting.
Okay, so in that point of view, there's also the possibility that they may never come out of that insanity. Because if time is not a component and they looking at it differently, they may be at that level for the rest of their life. So when people use temporary insanity as a defense or crimes of passion, maybe, now it's a lifestyle. That situation made it into a lifestyle. So maybe we need to define how we check into these things with the psychological evaluation. I don't know if one was ordered for him, but I would have thought that should have been necessary before they even had his bail hearing.
Well, that's
because.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Jump in. I'm done.
That's another thing that I feel like should be taken into consideration because Ruben touched on it, but thinking like Cain is an athlete. So like fighters especially have like you have to have a killer instinct to be a fighter. But one thing that I can say only for myself, I can't speak for other fighters. Like the more I learned how to defend myself or fight, quote unquote, the more aware I was of the capabilities that I had and the responsibilities that I had in society. Because it's so easy to get triggered and go off and knee somebody in the face or break somebody's arm and then try to plead temporary insanity. The thing for me, I never got punched in the head as much as Cain did. So he may, when you get punched as many times or kneed or kicked in the head as many times as these athletes have been, they're not right in the head anymore. So again, one, he does have a killer instinct because he is a fighter, and even the nicest fighters have to have some type of instinct to go out there and fight and put their life on the line against another person. But especially when you're a man and you feel like you're supposed to be the protector of your family, and another man has destroyed somebody in your family in that manner, which they said it was probably over 100 times. Again, the person that said it was like, I don't even know how they came up with that number. So I don't know how they came up with the number of the person molesting a girl more than once. I'll just say more than once. Like you feel helpless in that moment. And again, as a fighter, like you go into fight or flight mode, which obviously he was in fight mode for 11 miles trying to catch the guy.
Okay, so I'm gonna touch on what you said, and I'm gonna clarify something. It's not that most fighters are damaged after fighting, after getting kicked and kneed. Let's just say that there could be some sustained injuries that they're not aware of because we still learning about the parameters with head trauma. You know what I mean? So it may create some trauma, but I do think that these commissions who are supposed to safeguard some of these fighters, they should look more closely into effects, long-term effects. Because everybody, we'll sit down there and talk to a fighter and we'll be like, they not the same like they was if you knew them before, especially if they was in some of those wars. And I would love to say some of the fighters, but I ain't gonna say no names. But, and this is before the last decade or so. So any of my recent teammates will know that. But I've known some fighters that they're not the same as when they started. And it started once they were in some wars. So yes, they need to do more. And this goes along with mental illness. They need to do more to understand how the brain works. It should be a priority because your brain controls your body to an extent. Well, not even to an extent, completely. So what you said about 100 times, one of the victims, I'm gonna say one of them, if not the only victim, or potential victim said that it was over 100 times and they were minors. So that's where that number came from. That number jumped out and stuck to me. But we're going to get to the other portion of it. Because to me, the fact that he was shooting at the man and chasing the man isn't the biggest part of the story, or isn't the only part of the story. There's another part of the story. Let's talk about the accused. Okay. First of all, the accused was on his way to get an ankle monitor at the time we Cain rolled up on. So if you just made bail, and I'm gonna complain about him making bail because they're saying you potentially molested kids. They're saying it was potentially more than one, and you make bail. I don't understand that, but Cain doesn't make bail, and you don't even do a psychological evaluation before his bail hearing. I have a problem with that. That tells me our system is really broken in a lot of ways. Secondly, if you make bail, why isn't there someone in the court right then and there to put an ankle monitor on you? Why do you trust that person to come back and get an ankle monitor put on? That makes no sense to me. You saying a person should be monitored, right? Third, this alleged crime happened in the daycare where the gentleman lived. His mom owns the daycare. Why is he allowed to live in that same location where they say the crime took place? I understand it's alleged, and I understand that until you're proven guilty, You're supposed to maintain certain rights. But now you're talking about the welfare of children. They should have told him he got to stay someplace else. He can't stay there around the kids, especially where that's allegedly where the crime took place. So why that order wasn't in place from the judge, I have a problem with. See, there's a lot of things that are going on in this case that I have a problem with. So how do you guys feel about those three things?
So I definitely agree. Like, I mean, so because it was alleged is one, I guess that's one of the reasons why he was able to post bail, because it wasn't confirmed. So to hold him there, I guess our judicial system doesn't feel like that it's fair to hold a man when all the evidence is circumstantial. He's not proven guilty yet. So, he's able to make bail and leave the court and leave the prison and get the ankle monitor, which I agree that he should
See
have.
my face, right?
Yeah, I do. But so I'm saying that I don't make up the rules. Like, I'm just saying, like,
Well, I'm saying, you said our judicial system said it ain't fair. Our judicial system hold people accountable all the time, from the start to the finish. Even though you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, a lot of times you treat it like you're guilty and you have to prove your innocence. Take, for example, if the police come into a situation and then it's a married couple and they were fighting or something, the man's got to go. The man might go to jail right away. They had to change it and say whoever got a mark on him, the other person got to go to jail. But that may not tell the whole story. The other person may have a mark because they try to bust you upside the head with a frying pan or something. But they make a decision right then and there. And then they'll tell that person to stay out the house.
Well, no, that whole situation changed. It's not like that anymore. I have close family who been in arguments, and when the cops got there, if everybody in the house gets mail in that house, then nobody has to leave the house. Y'all just got to keep it down and stop disturbing the neighbors or stop the domestic violence. They don't make anybody leave the house anymore.
They don't do that anymore?
No, which is unfortunate, and I think is very stupid, because like anybody could get mail at your house. Like, if I have a piece of mail at your house, but I'm in your house harassing you and the cops get there and they like, is your name on the lease? No, but I get mail here. Oh, all right. Well, I need y'all to stop this before.
Okay, so I'm gonna assume you think it's stupid that they didn't tell him not to go back there.
No, I think that's stupid. Like, I don't understand how they would allow him back into the situation. Like, and then again, if you have nowhere else to go, if you have no other family members and you think that you're going back into the house, then yes, we're just going to keep you in prison because you have nowhere else to go. But we can't allow you to go back into that house unless you're shutting down a daycare. That's another thing. Like, his mom's daycare should be shut down because she's.
Well, I can understand why they didn't do that, because you don't know whether it really happened or not, and then you're caring for kids. But they should have called for inspection and looked at the daycare differently and saw what was going on.
Right.
From the people that handle that. But he should never. They should have told him it's a restraining order. Same way they tell people it's a restraining on you now. Stay away from it. When they think it's an alleged crime and it's a violent crime, they tell them, get a restraining order and stay away from it. How do you feel about this, Ruben? Rude. We must have lost them in the connection. So I feel they shouldn't have let him back in. I want to stress something too, because somebody listening to this is probably saying to themselves, if I should understand that that man was protecting his family members and that's why he did it. But because listening to me say he snapped and how we redefined it, it's like they think that I think he's wrong for doing what he did. I don't think he's wrong for doing what he did. I think people that do certain things, we're going to find out if he's right over time. But no, you have to defend your family. And sometimes as a parent, as a father, you got to do the unthinkable sometimes. That might be that situation. My only question with that is the 11 miles. And like I said, he drove behind the man all that time, shot the wrong person in the car 2 or 3 times. they gotta not let him make bail. They just got to. It's the message it sends. You
So
know, that you can just do that.
yeah, that's the reason why he's still locked up. And a lot of people are arguing that, like, oh, well, you know, he was protecting his family, but he also put so many other people in danger while shooting another person that had nothing to do with it.
Right.
You know, and
Right.
everybody's like that goes into our argument about the death penalty that we had, where we had that conversation twice on here already, where I said, you know, I don't feel like that judges and jury have the right to say, you know, this person deserved the death penalty. But in the instance of somebody, you know, feeling like their family was wrong, whether it was his daughter or somebody really close to him, and trying to take matters into their own hands. But at that point, you know, he's chasing him down and putting other people's lives in danger. So he shot somebody that, you know, didn't have anything to do with it. Well, might have had something to do with it, but it wasn't the person that he was aiming for.
Shot
Now,
his
what if,
father-in-law, I do believe.
right now, what if their family wanted to come retaliate? Then it just turned into, you know, people trying to shoot each other, which is basically a gang war.
The Capulets versus the Montagues,
Yeah, it's like,
Romeo and Juliet. Let's kill everybody. But I mean, I personally feel like he should have just walked him to sleep. Like, instead of chasing him and all that, like, nah, you should just walked up on him and did what you did. Like, maybe he couldn't catch him like that. But I understand what you're saying, but that's my whole concern. The penalty, even if you do something like that, if you put other people in risk, it's a higher penalty. That's why I said the death penalty. Like, if you go out and you try to kill one person and you shoot like 12 others and you shoot into a crowd, I personally feel like you got to go. You know what I mean? Because you have no regard for nobody's life just to kill this one person. And that's my thing. If he'd have just walked up and shot the dude, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. I'd be like, free Cain, like, yo.
now, but was it like, now was he following them for 12 miles, or was it an actual car chase?
It was a car chase.
Now, was it, see, and then that puts other people on the road lives at danger because you're actually chasing this car. So like, if you just happen to be following this person and then you pull up next to them at a light and start shooting, then they pull off and you.
Let me say this. I understand it was a car chase. Now, of course, like I said, details will come out later on because they still scrambling to put the stuff together. But that in itself is a horror. Somebody following you for 11 months, you know they want to shoot. You know they want to kill you. You know, like, don't get hit in traffic.
I feel like that's what we got 911 for, though. If we're ever gonna use the police in situations, because if you know somebody's following you for 11 miles, one, why would you not call the police? Two, I've seen enough movies and played enough video games to, you know, shake somebody off that's telling me for 11 miles. I
don't know. You don't know about that now. You don't know what he was driving. You don't know what the other boy was driving. The other boy might have been driving a little Honda Civic, and he driving a big old pickup truck. People gonna get out the way of the pickup truck. They're not getting out the way of the Honda Civic.
I know if I'm driving, and that's why I never take the same way home too often, because like I mean, call me paranoid or whatever it is, but it's like, if I start noticing the same car following me all the time, or following me for more than they should, I'm turning off. I'm doing something different to just to make sure. And then if I see, okay, you know what, this person is following me, but we gonna have a different situation.
The best time to follow a person is when they in the car with somebody else talking. That's the best time to follow. Somebody told me that years ago.
Not true, because I pay attention to my surroundings all the time.
Basically, man.
Too, but when you're talking to people, though, you're not as like, you get distracted. Sometimes you turn and look at them. And then this was daytime. This wasn't nighttime where you see the same headlights. We don't know what was going on. And then he had to come from the daycare near his house, you know what I mean, to follow the dude. So he might have just pulled up out on him and he like, yo, because they was taking him to get his ankle bracelet. So he came out the house and they followed. Now, to your point about calling the cops. Yeah, you calling the cops. One of the dudes next to you, what is he the one talking to the cops? He all shot up. Where you at? I don't know. Like, you turning down streets, you don't know.
But that's the thing. So like, what you don't know, we don't know when the guy got shot. If he got shot at the end of the 11 miles, if he, how did the car chase come to an end? And we just found out Ruben is a stunt driver that can never get caught because
Yeah.
he know how to lose and tell. We gotta find out what Ruben history is before he became a
Look, man.
barber.
Yeah, when I was younger,
I watched Born Supremacy and Born Identity and enough James Bond movies to know. You know what? This person been following me for X amount of miles. Everywhere I go, they go. Every lane I take, they take. And let me see something real. Let me get off this exit that I don't usually get off at and see if they get off the exit too. Oh, they did get off the exit. Oh, they are following me. All right,
Yes,
come on. Let me show you something real quick.
I checked my surroundings because when I was younger, we followed this car, just a random car, to see if they would know if we followed them. And the dude took us down like a two-way street that ended, and he did a U-turn to come towards us and hit the gas. We ended up backing up out of there and getting out of there. It just scared the hell out of us because we was just joking around. But that boy noticed us, and then he was coming to confront us.
I'm that boy. I would have been that boy.
No, I'm gonna disagree with you. You wouldn't have been that boy. I'm gonna tell you why you wouldn't have been that boy. You trying to shake the dude off. This dude wasn't trying to shake us off. He was like, I'm gonna see who there, and then whatever happens. That's how he led us like that. And it taught a good lesson. Like, be aware of your surroundings. But I mean, if somebody chasing you or shooting at you, it don't matter how you're aware of your surroundings. Like, the boy want to kill you. We don't know if he knocked other cars out the road and this and that. It's gonna be interesting to hear the details behind this particular madness. But I do want to bring up another thing. Since the judge that denied the bail, and a lot of people are like, free Cain because he shouldn't be to jail, because that was my family member. I'd have smoked before, tried to smoke before too. The judge is asking for protective custody because she's getting so many death threats. So how do you feel about that? Like the judge getting death threats for her decision that she put down?
I mean, her job is to protect people and go by the law. So like if they feel like that, if Cain got out, that he would go back into the same mode that he was in, because honestly, like he already in trouble. So like if he get prosecuted and found guilty for attempted murder, I think they said he still get life in jail for attempted murder. So now he like, whatever, I'm probably gonna get caught for attempted murder anyway. So if y'all let me out, I'm just gonna go murder him because I'm gonna be in jail forever anyway. So like people get so emotional who don't know Cain. People, I'm sure the people that sending death threats don't know him personally. They just feel entitled to voice their opinion and feel like that they are social justice warriors and they can say whatever they want. So like sending death threats to a judge that you probably won't even go through with is stupid. And over somebody that you don't even know, you know him from TV, you probably won some money off of him from knocking out Brock Lesnar. But other than that, like you don't know this person. Like people get so emotional and they're driven by their emotions and they feel like, you know, their way is the right way, but you know, that's not necessarily how things are going. And so I think it's unfortunate that you doing your job is getting you death threats from people who might not even be a well-known person to Cain Velasquez.
They'll be well known if they catch them. You can't just give a judge death threats and they don't look into it. That's like a capital offense. So
yeah, it's crazy.
You know, it's gonna be something with that. So we talked about Cain. We talked about how Cain didn't make parole. I mean, didn't make bail, but this guy made bail. I don't think he should have made bail neither.
Yeah, I don't think that he should have made bail, but again, he wasn't. They haven't found him guilty yet, so
right. But they still should have held him for at least a little bit while they checked into it. You know, they sometimes do that in cases. They'll hold you, like Philadelphia used to do that for a while. They used to hold you for like 190 days. And then they would tell you at the end of the 190 days, like, we can't bring this case because they figured out they couldn't win the case. So they just let you go before it became a criminal offense. So I think in certain situations where the victims are minors, they should hold you for a little while. That's why I challenged the ruling of having Cain have his bail hearing right away before it was a psychological evaluation. That's my only thing on that. So my next question on who's to blame, because we're going to get to the end of the show and wrap it up. And I thought long and hard on this question. And, you know, it kept going back and forth in my head. So who's to blame for society not really examining mental illness when it comes to rage? Because I think sometimes when you can't control your anger, that's a form of mental illness. You know, people that are like bipolar or schizophrenic, you know, they have bouts of anger a lot of times. So who's to blame for society's unwillingness to really look into better ways for us to control our anger? Either one of you guys.
I guess
When
I
it
go.
comes to criminal.
I think
Go ahead,
society
Ruben.
is to blame for. I think our own society and our own upbringing is to blame for us not knowing how to properly deal with anger. This is one of those situations where I'm gonna take Aaron's response and say I blame the parents, because a lot of times people have kids and they have kids with people that they had no business having kids with, and they're broken, you know, and I'm talking about the parents, and the parents are broken, the parents are hurt, the parents got their own traumatic issues that they've dealt with, you know, in their past, and their own traumas that they've dealt with, and they've never, you know, seek help for that trauma. And now they just pass all of that hurt, all of that trauma, all of that pain onto the child, you know, via either it be verbal or physical or even emotional, or sometimes all three. And, you know, that child grows up, they got issues, they don't know why they're angry, they're hurt, they're damaged, and, you know, they just take it out on society, and it's a never ending ruthless cycle. So I'm still in Aaron's answer, you know, if I blame the parents.
I ain't gonna stop Aaron for using his answer if you want to, just so you know. Go ahead, Aaron.
You know, for once, I think I'm gonna piggyback off of Ruben, and I'm gonna blame the parents. I blame the parents as well, because again, it is our duty as parents to raise our children, and if we pay attention to our children, we know the issues that they have. We can see our kids having anger issues, not being able to express their emotions in a healthy manner. And if we understand that we can't do that as well, if they're mimicking us, or we haven't gave them the opportunity to learn how to express themselves and their emotions in a healthy way, then obviously the parents need help in order to learn how to express their emotions, and then teach and help their children be able to express their emotions before they turn into adults and have these crazy episodes and mental illnesses that they can't control, and they end up, you know, doing unfortunate things in society. So I blame the parents as well.
Okay, I'm going to answer this question. I'm finally left with time, and I don't have to speed through the answers. I'm going to actually piggyback on what you said partially, and then I'm also going to blame the government and society and what society lets them do. Yes, parents do turn a blind eye to their kids' faults. A lot of times parents see a problem and they knew it was a problem for them, and they just mimic what they were doing, so it's okay. But that's not how you solve a problem. If you see someone that's having a problem with something like that, you need to try to fix the problem. And the earlier that you try to fix the problem, the better it is for that person. We talk about this all the time. But the longer you let a problem go, the more complicated the solution will be. If you're able to produce a solution to that problem, because now it's not just a problem, it's a way of a lifestyle. And once things become a way of a lifestyle, it's the hardest thing to get rid of. People tend not to admit that they have flaws, and then they tend not to learn how to deal with those flaws because it's a part of their life now. So yes, I do blame the parents. but I do blame our society. Our society at one point decided that mental institutions were unnecessary, that families and outpatient service were necessary, and it had nothing to do with results. It had everything to do with money. As a society, we need to have professionals look at things. We also need to pour money into mental health, all kind of studies, all kind of solutions. And just because it's a professional, let me say this, a professional may have opinion, but that doesn't mean they're right. It doesn't mean they know how to solve the problem. It just means that they have some background in the problem. Doesn't mean they're right. Doesn't mean they know what the hell they're doing, and they could be absolutely wrong. But you can't be absolutely right until you're absolutely wrong at some point. So for you to learn, every failure is a failure, but it may lead to a success because you learn more. We say this all the time, you learn more from your failures than everything else. You learn, you fail at a problem, you learn how to solve 3 other problems like that until you come to the right answer. So that fear of failing, I don't know why people have it. You fail, you regroup, you go forward, and you try to find a better solution. Crimes of passion, anger management, you know, these are things that are real things, and they lead to a lot of problems. Emotional instability growing up, you know, what's going on in your family and your likelihood of what's going on. And then I think Ruben was saying that you can teach your child those negative things from them watching you, but you also have another problem. You do have a DNA component where you have people who can't deal with certain situations because we all tend to group into certain groups. So people with drug addictions tend to have relationships with people with drug addictions because they understand each other. People that deal with mental illness do have relationships with people that have mental illness, and they have kids, you know, from that DNA stock. Now, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm saying that's a component to the problem that should be looked at as well. Like, does that DNA carry certain elements and you pass it on to your kids other than just teaching them that? Because you pass over certain diseases, so why can't you pass over certain mental instabilities to your children? But it's an interesting topic. So the main crux of it, I blame the parents for turning the blind, the ones that turn a blind eye. And I also blame society because they know these problems exist and they put a price tag on it. And your people's mental wellness shouldn't have a price tag associated with it. It should be something that we need to try to do. The same way the president stands up in the State of the Union speech and say, we can end cancer in the next few years, we can eradicate it. If we put the money to research and talk about things, then we can eradicate mental illness. Maybe not in the next few years, maybe it'll take a couple decades, but it's worth it. I want to thank everybody for joining us for Combustible Elements. I'm Big Mel. I'm joined by Ruben the Monarch with that snazzy picture down at the bottom. Aaron the Hitman. Thanks everybody for joining us. We out here. We on all forums, all platforms. If you have a question, please answer, comment, hit the like and subscribe. If you have something you want to talk about, we take guests all the time. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and I look forward to talking to you in the future. Peace out, everybody.
Say before we get off of here, that last thing you said was like a Jerry Springer final thought. So we need we need to give you some more time at the end to get your thought fully out. That was a piece together, Jerry Springer final thought that you just gave us.
I live in the moment, so it wasn't pieced together. I live in the moment, bro. It just came out. Thanks, everybody. We'll look forward to talking to you in the future.